My name is Dion Young, attorney in West Monroe. I would like to talk to you today about Mark Brister. I'd like you to reconsider really his punishment and look at what's going on in his life in the last 6 months. In the complaint, the complaints were that we had sold a piece of equipment without a contract. We've since met with Cross Keys Bank, worked out everything with them, so they have no problem. They're happy. We've since worked out something, or with Mr. Green, I think it was also in the complaint. Something was worked out with him before. I don't know if he ever filed a complaint, but Mr. Green was paid. I think he was paid before the last meeting. And so, you know, I think the biggest problem now are us going forward and not making these mistakes again. We've hired an accountant. Well, we haven't hired an accountant. We have an accountant. He's going to be paid on an auction basis. When we do an auction, he's going to help us. His name is Brad Johnson, who's with the firm in Monroe. He's going to come in. We have one escrow account. I've explained that to Mark. We have one checking account that everything goes through. He's really, you know, he needs to, and our biggest problem is he's got a lot tied up in the business, and he's losing vendors, he's losing buyers, because he's not on the auction. He's not up there doing it. And I know, I've always thought, okay, you have one guy up there, he has a cadence, and I didn't learn about this until several months ago. But some auctioneers do better than others, and like a better way, Mark does a good job. He's good at getting people to buy, and he's good at getting sellers in to sell at this location. But if he's not up there, he's not able to make that happen. I would ask, and I understand there's a lot to consider, and I'm not here to say that you know, we're perfect, but I can tell you that Mr. Brister's learned his lesson. He's figured out where he's went wrong. We've amended those problems, and we won't have those problems again. Known Mark for a while, good person, and again, like I told him, I can't get up there and say you're innocent. You didn't do anything. He made some mistakes, but he's learned from his mistakes. He's had an auction since, I believe he's had an auction since 2002. You know, 14 years, never had a problem.
My understanding when Mr. Brister came before the board, that he had someone else to call his auctions.
Another auctioneer?
Yeah.
And he's hiring auctioneers.
So he has other people to hire auctioneers in order to keep his business going until he can take over in May. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no. We don't have the number of auctions that we had before because we don't have the auctioneer is very important in that business. And he doesn't have the vendors coming to him like they did before because he doesn't have because he's not up there. And either they're not getting as much or they're going elsewhere, but he's losing them because he's not up there.
Right, but you are aware of the fact that the punishment could have been a lot worse than it was.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I'm not mistaken. I'm not here to say, you know, he's perfect. He's not, and he's not. But I can tell you, he's learned his lesson. He's learned his lesson, and we put together the steps that he needs to make it right and not make this mistake again.
As a lawyer, you know that judges put people in jail because they want them to learn a lesson.
Well, they also give them probation.
Right, but they do. But sometimes they put them in jail. They want them to learn a lesson. So, penal-wise, there is a program to try to rehabilitate people. And I think we have that here with regard to that board. I mean, if we were to give every auctioneer that came before us with an infraction a second chance, they'd be back here for the third and fourth time. I mean...
Well, I don't know how many you had that come back a third and fourth time.
We have several that come back on multiple occasions.
I mean, this is his first time, and he's...
Well, I understand. Well, that's not exactly true.
Well, it's the first time that there's a problem.
Well, the first time we've gone this far. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, part of my concern with Mark's operations had to do with his inability really on the business side, to make sure that checks were good, to make sure money was put in the proper place that he should. How can you assure the board that that is not going to be a problem? And secondly, there was a claim filed against him by the bank, and it's now been filed against the bond. Can you assure the board that that matter is going to be resolved also?
The matter with Cross Keys Bank, yes, yes.
Well, I mean, has it been resolved?
But we have come to an agreement with Cross Keys Bank where we're gonna have to pay them the difference in what they wanted and what they were seeking. We're gonna pay them. Our bond's not gonna pay them, we're gonna pay them.
And what about the business operations? What is Mark going to do to remedy the business funds?
Well, he's hired Brad Johnson, who's an accountant, and I was there personally with Brad when he went over with Mr. Brister about where the escrow account is, what the checking account is, where the money goes, and how.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not picking on Mark, but, you know, with all due respect, so you'll know, he's been coming down here since 2010 on various things. This isn't his first trip, and I'm not picking on him, I'm not trying to slander him or hurt him, but as Mr. Burns says, I got to put the truth on the table, because I don't want nothing deceived in this deal. I understand, I have empathy for his problem, but I'm not so sure by the law this board can do anything to alleviate what we've done.
Mr. Sims, can I approach the board?
It should come on in your convenience, I mean.
You mentioned that I've been down here several times in the last 8 years. Can you tell me how many times?
I mean, 2005, I know it 3-4 times.
No,
You've
sir,
been
I've
since
only been,
2010.
no, sir, I've only been to this board one time prior to November the 2nd. That was probably in 04 and 05, on the issue of gun that sold at my auction. I've been here one time.
All I know is what's in the file.
Yeah.
The first reference was made, the blank file was 2002.
I know how to set up the escrow account, and I've known how to do it. I'm guilty for not having just an escrow account. I had an account that commingled funds. I'm guilty of that. Of course, being down here numerous times, I've only been down here once prior to November the 2nd. You'll go back, I promise you, you'll find that. Complaints, there may have been, having as many auctions as I have here, there's always going to be complaints. But this deal with the contract, not having, guilty of that. And then it all snowballed from that. I don't know if it came from phone calls, I'm sure it did. But I had a great auction at one time. But this last year, if I don't get back on the stand, it's just plain and simple. I've laid all my workers off. If I don't get back on the stand after, I'm gonna say about 2 weeks, not only am I gonna lose my auction, everything I own, my mother is losing everything she owns. She's operating on $400 a month. And it's gonna take me to keep her going.
Who's calling your auction?
Richard Thompson. If I don't get back on the stand and get some sellers in there, I'll be completely out of business in the next 2 weeks. Dion did mention it, I will. I've had an opportunity to come along in the last month, just out of the blue. It could probably make me an instant millionaire overnight. But it can't happen unless I'm on the auction stand.
Let me ask this. I mean, we've done it in the past. I mean, we've done it for Buick, we've done it for a bunch of other people. Just, board wants to, I'll go along with putting them on a strict supervision board, which you'll have to ask to on a 30-day basis.
Okay, well, my problem with Mark has I've never had a complaint on what he said on when he's called. I had a problem with his operation, he's admitted it today. And that's what concerns me, he's basically allowing him to do what he did does work. If we had stipulation that, he's got a CPA to review everything, that we have a right to review his records on a regular basis. That would be.
How much of a bond did we give you before?
It was $500 on each of the 5 counts that were told.
I mean, if it would have to be a tit for tat. I mean, if we let you go back to your business, then we have to impose a fine.
We can do it by stipulation, that means he would have to agree to it as well.
I understand that, but I mean, I don't think you can just say, all right, well, we're going to forgive you, and
I
that's it.
understand.
Because everybody's going to be
Completely
coming out here
understand.
and say, man, and they have to, and they come back. I mean, we have to agree to an additional fine to be paid, you know, on a certain basis.
I wouldn't have no problem.
Listen,
Well, I mean, I'd have to know what that is. I mean, they're assuming everybody agrees. I mean, but that's the only way that I would vote, to maybe give you a reprieve on this.
Right now, he's got $2,500 in fines that he owes, and he was given 1 year to pay. So
And I think,
That's after his probation period, he's got 4 years.
it was from 1 year of the date of the
you
hearing.
know, I mean, I think we have to increase the fine.
We already got it up to $2,500, that's gonna be hard for him to pay.
Well, but if he, but I think he can pay it over
6
time
months.
if he's back in business, and I think his lawyer
If
said
they're
that.
back in
So
business,
he-
yes.
Now, I think you got to have something that if anybody looks at it, you can say, well, I mean, it's like a tit for tat. Yes, they did lift part of the imposition of him not working, but they put a fine in place. That would be the only thing that I would, well, I mean, I think I would increase it another $1,500.
Miss Jacobs,
Give him time to pay it.
I got no problem with that whatsoever. If I got, say, the same amount of time as I had to pay the
Yeah,
2,500.
absolutely, yeah.
So you're gonna increase it, so now it's gonna be
I mean,
$4,000.
pay it payable on time.
$4,000 wouldn't be near as bad on me as me not being able to.
But I think that you need someone that can oversee, and I think it should be a trained auctioneer. That can.
Go ahead.
Okay, I mean, I would be in favor of putting him back into business as an auctioneer, to be able to auction up with the following provisions. Number one, he pay an additional $1,500 fine on top of the $2,500, and be able to pay with the same terms that we gave him before, which would make the total amount of the fine $4,000. And second, that he has a CPA familiar with the rules of the auctioneers board, oversee his operation, and then report back to the board that he is in compliance with all of our requirements.
And then, excuse me, and then you would have to add to that, that there would be no appeal.
Right,
That's
there's
the
no-
original proceeding.
Right.
That this would be a resolution of the entire proceeding for a final.
Right, that's-
Stipulation
Right.
to dissolve the entire.
But I gotta tell you, if you come back before the board, I mean, you know, we're not gonna be, as sympathetic to you.
And that I would prefer, you know, we may dispute the number of times that Mr. Brister was physically here. We cannot dispute the number of times I've had to investigate complaints and to send someone up to check to see what's going on. And most of this had to do.
I know you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I did.
All right, so part of this deal is that you're going to pay a fine. Instead of the fine in the original judgment of $2,500, it's going to be $4,000, to be paid by November,
January 13th.
okay, January 13, 2016. You understand
I did.
that? That you're going to retain the services of a CPA who will manage all of your records regarding your escrow account, and that he will provide copies of those records as described here to the board on a monthly basis.
I did.
That you will understand that one bounce check, one lack of failure to provide records, another complaint during this 1 year period from today could result in an indefinite suspension if nothing else.
I did.
Okay. You will not appeal the previous ruling. That matter is considered concluded as of today.
I did.
That you're going to make sure that Cross Keys Bank is paid and that provision is made to notify us of that fact. How soon?
I think we're gonna, well, by the next meeting, which is in March.
Okay.
Okay.
And
You gonna
that.
handle that deal?
Yeah, that's
It needs to come through his law firm.
Probation will expire, it will be extended until January 13, 2016. Also, at the January meeting 2016, I would ask this to be placed on the agenda that you appear and that the board make a decision at that time whether it wishes to release you from that probation or whether it needs to be extended.
Right.
Accepted.
And I would like to make a motion motion that we accept the provisions as outlined by Ms. Anadai.
I'll second that.
There's a motion, second, that, Mr. Brister will enter the board supervision for a period of 12 months. With stipulations that will be hereby recorded in the minutes and made part of this meeting. Is there any discussion?
No, sir.
I'll reflect, however, on the minutes that Mr. Brister is here represented by counsel, has been advised by counsel, and he's done this of his own free will and volition.
Correct.
This agreement we're talking about will be made attachment to these minutes.
We're gonna memorialize it in writing, it will just reflect
Will
what
that
the
be
person.
signed by the board and Brister? And
Would not be effective, because we won't have that ready for the next meeting.
We wanted to be able to.
we want him to be able to work.
Right now.
Right.
Right.
But
We're gonna
I mean,
memorialize.
it's gonna be the same deal we did with you.
We're gonna put that,
Everybody's
put that
going
in
to
writing
sign.
also.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
Thank you, board, very much. I really appreciate you.